It's a classic story of how many people get addicted to opioids. We both suffered from chronic pain. Mine was in my neck and his was in his back.
Another emotional day in the courtroom. The woman you were just hearing from, George Floyd's girlfriend, testifying for the first time about their relationship and their struggles with opioid addiction, a battle that they were both dealing with over the years. George Floyd's history with drug use now front and center in this trial.
Yeah, and the world is watching. The former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin, who faces felony murder charges. Javi standing by with a closer look at some of the forensic evidence. Javi.
Good morning. In court yesterday, there was bombshell after bombshell. A Minneapolis police sergeant who is now retired was the first police official to testify that Chauvin used excessive force and he should have ended the restraint after Floyd stopped resisting. We also heard from a fire department captain who said medics were not able to find a pulse on Floyd when they arrived. But the biggest question, how did Floyd die? The defense is arguing Floyd's death was caused by drugs and an underlying health condition. So joining us right now is forensics evidence specialist Scott Roeder. And although an autopsy found both fentanyl and meth in Floyd's system, yesterday those medics testified that when they arrived, that Chauvin still had his knee on his neck. And when they pulled him off, they didn't find any pulse. They didn't find him breathing at all. How damaging is that to the defense's argument?
Well, Javier, that's very damaging. The fact that George had no pulse, was clearly in an altered state of consciousness and totally unresponsive, just goes to show that they should have known at about 20:25 or 6:25 that George arrested and was unresponsive, and essentially they were continuing using force with no purpose at that point.
So how crucial is determining time of death for Floyd when a medical examiner looks at this and then this plays out as evidence?
Well, I think time of death is critical. As I evaluated the video footage myself, the incident takes place over a period of 9 minutes and 34 seconds. After 4 minutes and 34 seconds, that's at the point in time in the video where I can ascertain no verbal cues from Mr. Floyd. There's no physical movement from him. And you can actually see the officers are letting up on putting pressure on him, at least the two officers to his rear. So they would have felt him go limp. One of the officers actually says, I think he passed out. And then also at that particular time at 20:25, that's when the people that were standing around on the street were also saying, hey, he's dead, he's passed out, please let him up. So I think it's very apparent that at 20:25 or 6:25 p.m. is when George's heart stopped.
Yeah, including that off-duty firefighter who was asking to check a pulse. Now, there's certainly a lot of emotion and drama in this murder trial, but what have you seen in the form of actual evidence presented by the prosecution?
Well, I think the prosecution did a good job of presenting kind of anecdotal witness statements of how these people felt, how they reacted, how they perceived the situation. And by all means, I think that these people had a very reasonable reaction to what they were seeing. The evidence that Officer Derek Chauvin put his hands in his pockets is actually forensically an important point. He weighs somewhere around 190 pounds. And when you put your knees on somebody, and I did this experiment yesterday by simply putting my body weight, I'm 182 pounds, putting my body weight with both of my knees on a scale and put no displacement of weight. About 75% of my body weight was transferred onto my knees. And that's the amount of pressure that was on George's neck and his back. And that's critical because when you have a knee in the back, you're compressing the rib cage and you're not giving the lungs the ability to reinflate. And then when you put the pressure on the neck, you're diminishing the oxygenated blood that's going to his brain. So that's all very critical relative to even a person in a diminished intoxicated state.
Well, that is certainly interesting perspective, sir. We thank you for taking some time this morning to break this trial down. We will continue to watch very closely.